The storm hit overnight, the kind of whiteout that buried cars up to their mirrors and muffled every sound in the neighborhood. By morning, the sky was pale blue again, sunlight glittering off untouched snowdrifts. The Carter family shoveled their driveway in silence, still half asleep, until Emma dropped her shovel with a startled gasp. At the edge of their yard stood a snowman. It was massive, nearly 7 feet tall, packed tightly enough that the morning sun didn't soften its edges. 3 round segments stacked in perfect symmetry. But what made them all step back was the face. Not made of coal or stones, not carved, just formed. Smooth features, almost human, with shallow hollows where eyes should be. Its mouth stretched into something that resembled a faint, frozen smile. "Who built that?" Mark asked, scanning the nearest houses. No kids outside. No footprints leading to it. No footprints at all. The base of the snowman sat undisturbed on the ground, as if the storm itself had shaped it overnight. They brushed it off at first, a prank maybe, but unease crept into the house as evening fell. By night, the wind howled again, rattling the windows like icy fingers. At dawn, Emma peered out the front window and screamed. The snowman was closer. Yesterday it stood near the fence, now it was right behind the gate, angled toward the house as though watching. Still no tracks in the snow, still that half-formed smile. Mark checked the security cameras. The feed flickered during the heaviest snowfall, but in the blur of white static, the snowman seemed to shift. One frame, it stood at the fence, the next 2 feet closer. No movement in between. As the day dimmed, clouds gathered again, and the family felt an unspoken dread settle over them. Outside, the snowman waited, silent, patient, and the forecast promised another storm tonight. The second night brought another heavy snowfall, the kind that drifted across the yard in swirling funnels. Inside, the Carters kept most of the lights on, pretending everything was normal, but none of them went near the windows. By sunrise, the storm had stopped again. The world outside looked peaceful, untouched, except for one thing. The snowman was gone. Where it had stood near the gate, there was now only a perfect circle of smooth, compacted snow. No scattered chunks, no signs it had toppled. Just absence. Mark walked outside carefully, boots crunching through the powder. The air felt sharper than usual, as if it bit at his skin. Emma and the kids watched from the doorway, breath fogging. "Maybe the wind knocked it over," Emma offered, though her voice said she didn't believe it. "The wind doesn't clean up after itself," Mark muttered. Then Mia, their daughter, pointed toward the side of the house. "Dad, look!" Along the narrow strip of yard, half hidden by a snowbank, ran a trail of footprints. Not boot prints, not shoes. Bare feet. Human-sized, spaced evenly, each one sunken deep in the snow as though someone had walked slowly, deliberately. The trail curved around the house and disappeared behind the garage. Mark followed them only a few steps before something made his stomach tighten. There were no footprints going back. "Get inside," he said quietly. Emma hurried the kids in, but Mark lingered another moment. The air around him felt heavy, expectant. He scanned the yard, the tree line, the neighboring houses. Nothing moved, except for a single loose flake drifting from the branch above him. As soon as it touched the ground, his phone buzzed, the motion alert from the security cameras. He opened the feed. Static. The cameras flickered violently, then cleared, showing the backyard fully visible under the bright morning sun. And the snowman was standing there, closer than ever, a few feet from the back steps. Perfect, tall, silent. He spun toward the house. No crunch of approaching footsteps, no sound at all. Yet the footprints leading from the gate to the side of the house were still there, untouched, unchanged. Only one thing was different. Now there were footprints leading from the snowman to the steps and stopping just short of the door. Bare, human, fresh. He backed away slowly, the burning cold tightening his chest. Inside the house, the thermostat beeped on its own. The temperature was falling. That evening, clouds piled over the neighborhood once again, thick and low, like a ceiling pressing down. By dinner time, the temperature inside the house continued to dip, despite the heating system running non-stop. The vents rattled with every gust of wind, blowing air that felt barely warmer than outside. Mark spent most of the evening at the dining table, rewinding and replaying the security footage, frame by frame. Emma kept the kids in the living room with cartoons turned up just loud enough to cover the creaking in the walls. But nothing helped. The house still felt watched. On the footage from that morning, the snowman stood motionless in the backyard. Then, as the snowfall thickened into a sudden white blur, one heavy second, the figure disappeared from its spot. But the camera didn't catch it moving. Not even a flicker. One frame. Snow falling. Next frame. Empty yard. Next, snowman standing 3 feet closer. It wasn't walking, it wasn't shifting, it was simply appearing. Mark leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. It doesn't make sense. Emma approached, placing a mug of hot tea beside him. We should call someone, the police, anyone. And tell them what? That a snowman is... He froze. On the screen, in the corner of the frame, just for a fraction of a moment before the static, movement. Not the snowman, something behind it, something pale, too tall, too thin, gliding just out of focus before vanishing in the storm. Mark hit rewind. Paused, zoomed in. But no matter how he adjusted the image, the shape dissolved back into the white noise. Still, he felt certain now, the snowman wasn't alone. A sudden knock made both of them jump, not at the door, from the window. 3 slow taps on the glass. Emma's breath caught as she turned. The living room window facing the backyard was fogged over from the outside, with a small circle cleared in the condensation, like someone had pressed their face close just moments before. On the windowsill, a few grains of snow melted into droplets. Mark approached carefully and wiped the glass. Outside, the snowman had moved again. Now it stood directly under the window, its smooth face angled upward toward the room. But the snow around its base was disturbed for the first time. A set of fresh footprints circled it, bare, human, as though someone had walked around the snowman, inspecting it. Emma stepped back. "Mark, whose prints are those?" He didn't answer, because something else caught his attention. Another set of footprints, smaller, leading from the snowman toward the house, then stopping at the wall directly beneath the kid's bedroom window. Inside, the floorboards creaked overhead. The sound from upstairs was soft, a single deliberate shift of weight, like someone taking one careful step across the kid's bedroom floor. Emma grabbed Mark's arm so tightly her nails dug into his sleeve. "The kids," she whispered. Mark didn't wait. He bolted for the staircase, taking the steps 2 at a time. Emma followed close behind, though every instinct told her to stay downstairs where the lights felt safer. At the top of the stairs, the hallway was colder than the rest of the house, the air sharp and breath-stealing. A thin layer of frost traced along the baseboards like creeping veins. The children's door was half open. A soft draft drifted from inside. Mark pushed the door fully open. Both kids were asleep, bundled under their blankets, cheeks pink from the cold. Nothing seemed out of place except the window. It was unlocked and standing open by less than an inch. Snowflakes fluttered inside, settling on the carpet like tiny white feathers. Mark rushed to shut it, but when he touched the frame, he recoiled. It was freezing, far colder than the winter air outside. Emma knelt beside the sill, staring. There, in the thin layer of frost forming on the wood, was the outline of a handprint, not a child's. Too long, too thin, the fingers stretched unnaturally, as though whoever left it didn't understand how a hand should look. Mark looked down at the floor, his heart thudded. More footprints, tiny ones, bare, leading from outside toward the window and then stopping underneath it. The prints were too small to be his, too uneven to be Emma's, and too delicate to belong to any adult. But they didn't belong to their children either. The shape was wrong, the toes too pointed, the arch too high, the heel too narrow. Something had been standing right there, watching, waiting. A sudden chime broke the silence, the motion alert from the hallway camera. Emma grabbed her phone with trembling hands. The feed opened to static, then cleared. A blurry white shape moved past the bottom of the stairs, gliding toward the front door. Not walking, not stepping, just drifting. The screen flickered again. Now the figure paused at the door, barely visible through the haze of the dying camera. It turned its head, or what resembled one, toward the camera, and smiled. Not with a mouth, but with a widening crack forming across its face, splitting the white surface like thawing ice. Mark whispered, "It's inside." But Emma wasn't looking at the camera anymore. She stared at the kid's closet door. It was open, just slightly, just enough to see darkness where the toys should have been, and from inside came the softest sound, like snow being crushed under a slow, deliberate step. Mark lunged toward the closet and yanked the door open. The light from the hallway spilled across boxes of toys, stacked clothes, winter boots, everything exactly where it belonged. No footprints, no frost, no movement, nothing. But the noise had been real. Emma clutched the doorframe, her breath shaky. "We can't stay here tonight." "We're not going anywhere in this storm," Mark said. Outside, wind slammed against the siding with a hollow, booming moan. Roads are probably iced over." He was trying to sound calm. He wasn't. They gathered the kids and moved everyone downstairs into the living room, pulling blankets to the couch and turning on every lamp in the house. The lights helped, but only a little. The cold seeped into the walls like a slow, deliberate breath. A knock at the front door startled them all. Not a tap, not a scrape, a heavy, hollow knock, twice, then once more, slower. Emma grabbed the kids. Mark approached the door, forcing himself to look through the peephole. He exhaled. It was their neighbor, Mr. Delman, bundled in a heavy parka, snow covering his shoulders. Mark opened the door quickly and pulled him inside. "You shouldn't be out in this weather," Mark said. "I saw your lights," Delman answered, brushing snow off his jacket. "Thought you should hear something." His expression was strange, serious in a way that didn't match his usual calm demeanor. He removed his gloves slowly, eyes scanning the windows, as though making sure nothing watched them. "You've seen it, haven't you?" he asked quietly. Emma stiffened. "Seen what?" Delman swallowed. "The thing in the snow." The room went silent except for the rattling vents. "You've had storms like this before," he continued, voice low. "Every few years, people blame the weather, but it isn't just weather. There's something that walks with the snow when it gets thick enough. My father called it the cold guest." Mark exchanged a look with Emma. Delman went on. "It's older than the town, shows up in blizzards, looks for warmth, looks for homes, picks a family." Emma's breath trembled. "Picks for what?" He hesitated, glancing toward the dark windows. "It replaces someone." Mark's pulse kicked. "What do you mean replaces?" "No one knows exactly," Delman whispered. "But when the blizzard clears, there's always one person missing, and the snowman left behind. A new one, with a face that looks more and more human each time." Emma's breath caught. "The prince," she murmured. Delman nodded slowly. "Bare feet, thin hands. It tries to learn us, mimic us, become us." A sudden scrape came from outside, long and slow, like something dragging across the siding. Everyone froze. Delman's face went pale. "It's here," he whispered. Another scrape, closer. Then a loud, deliberate tap on the window. Not from a hand, from something colder, something patient, something that had finally found the house it wanted. Snow slammed against the house in thick, swirling waves. The windows rattled as if something outside was pushing on them, testing them. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied, though the air grew even colder. Mark shut the curtains, but the tapping on the glass continued, slow, intentional. Delman stepped back from the window, shaking his head. "It knows someone's inside. It always knows." Emma pulled the kids closer on the couch, wrapping them in blankets. Their son whimpered, "Mom, is it a monster?" She didn't answer. Mark grabbed a flashlight and moved to the front door. "If the storm lets up for even 5 minutes, we're getting in the truck and going." Delman grabbed his arm. "You won't get far. It follows the snow, not the roads. You open that door, you let it in." A sudden bang echoed from the back of the house, sharp, hollow, like a fist against the siding. Then another. Then 3 in a row. The house seemed to shift under the weight of the storm. Mark checked the back camera from his phone. Static, more static. Then, for a brief second, a clear image. The snowman, standing against the back door, face tilted upward, as if listening. But the worst part wasn't the snowman. It was the shape behind it, tall, pale, almost transparent, bending low over the figure like a puppeteer adjusting its marionette. The feed cut out again. Emma whispered, "It's almost at the door." Delman pointed to the thermostat, now blinking in warning. The temperature was falling fast, room by room, a creeping cold that moved through the walls like a shadow. Then the house made a sound none of them expected. A soft click. The lock on the front door. It had unlocked itself. Emma gasped. Mark lunged forward, twisting the deadbolt back into place. Another click. The lock slid open again, on its own. The wind outside surged. Snow blasted against the front steps. Delman whispered, "It's stronger now. The closer it gets, the more it can touch." Then the front porch camera flickered on. A shape appeared in the falling snow. Not a snowman this time. A figure, human-sized, barefoot, covered in frost. It stepped forward until its face pressed against the camera lens, and the mouth, carved across its frozen skin, widened in recognition. The camera feed froze on the creature's face, its skin pale like packed snow, its features too smooth, too stretched, as if sculpted by hands that didn't understand human proportions. Then the image dissolved into static. In the sudden silence, a new sound rose from the front porch. Soft, wet footsteps, approaching the door. Emma pulled the kids into the hallway. Delman pressed his back against the wall, clutching a fireplace poker. Mark stood closest to the door, trying to steady his breathing. Something brushed against the other side, light, deliberate, like fingertips dragging across wood. Then came the second sound. Footsteps upstairs, inside the house. Emma's face drained of color. It can't be. We're all down here." But they heard it clearly, gentle steps moving across the children's bedroom floor, then down the hallway, slow and unhurried. The weight was wrong, too light, too careful, like someone trying to imitate how a human walks. Mark whispered, "It isn't at the door anymore." Delman shook his head. "No, it never needed the door." A cold draft snaked through the house. The lights dimmed. Frost began forming along the staircase railing, creeping downward like veins of ice. A shape appeared on the top step, small, barefoot, frozen. It looked like a child, maybe their daughter's height, but its limbs were too thin, its shoulders too narrow. Snowflakes fell from its hair made not of strands, but of frost. It tilted its head as if studying them. Emma gasped, recognizing something horrifying. The creature wore her son's missing winter jacket, the one that had vanished 2 days earlier. The small figure stepped down 2 stairs. Mark raised the flashlight. The beam hit its face. To no eyes. Just smooth indentations. A blank canvas of packed snow, trying to copy what a child should look like. Delman whispered, "That's not the guest. That's only one of its shelves. The creature froze mid-step, head twitching toward the front door. From outside came 3 slow knocks, heavier this time. The real one had arrived. The frost child turned back to the stairs and melted into the shadows, as if retreating to make room. Mark felt the temperature plummet. The walls groaned. Then a single set of bare footprints appeared on the living room floor, out of nowhere, forming in the frost, one by one, leading toward them, toward the children, toward the warmest, most living thing in the house. The footprints kept forming across the living room floor, each one appearing with a soft, chilling crack, as if ice were breaking beneath an invisible weight. Emma held the children tight, whispering for them not to look. Delman grabbed the fireplace poker with both hands. Mark stepped forward, placing himself between the family and the approaching prince. But the footprints suddenly stopped. Not because the creature turned back, but because now the house itself seemed to inhale. A deep, slow creaking rolled through the walls, floorboards shifting as if the structure had taken a breath. Frost spread up the door frames, climbing toward the ceiling like living veins. The thermostat blinked and died. A faint whisper drifted through the vents, thin, cold, and almost childlike. "Let me in." Emma's knees buckled. "She's speaking." Delman shook his head. "No, it doesn't speak. It mimics. It steals voices." Another whisper, this one sounding exactly like their daughter. "Mommy, open the door." The real girl whimpered in Emma's arms. Mark raised the flashlight again, but its beam flickered uselessly, barely cutting through the spreading cold fog. The air grew so frigid his breath crystallized before his eyes. Then came a new sound. The back door latch, sliding, slowly, quietly, on its own. Mark ran toward the kitchen. As he reached the doorway, the lights flickered back on, just long enough to reveal a figure standing inside the back entrance. Not the snowman, not the frost child, something taller, thinner, its limbs impossibly long. Its skin looked like white fabric stretched over a frame of twigs. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, as if studying how humans hold theirs. It stepped forward silently, though its feet didn't touch the floor. Snowflakes drifted from its shoulders. It raised its arm, long, jointed wrong, and placed an impossibly thin hand against the kitchen wall. Frost exploded outward from the touch, crawling across tiles, cabinets, appliances. Mark stepped back. "Don't come closer." The creature paused. Then its head twitched violently, as though adjusting something internally. Its face changed, just slightly. The indentations deepened, shaping into uneven copies of human features. An attempt to mirror Mark, a crude, unfinished mask of him forming across the pale surface. Emma gasped, "It's choosing!" Delman whispered, "It only needs one. Once it replaces—" A new noise cut him off. The upstairs floor creaked. Again, heavy this time. Another presence moving. Another shell? Or the real guest? The creature in the kitchen suddenly turned toward the staircase as if responding to a silent call, then melted backward into the storm of frost, vanishing through the wall as if slipping into snow itself. The house exhaled again, colder than before. Then, footsteps began descending the stairs. Human ones, slow, steady, familiar. Emma cried out, "Who's up there?" Mark's voice cracked. "No one. No one should be." The steps reached the last stair. Something rounded the corner into the hallway, and it looked exactly like Mark. But the Mark was still standing beside Emma, and the double smiled with a mouth too wide. The double stepped into the living room with slow, deliberate movements, too smooth, too measured, like someone imitating a walk they'd only seen once. Its face was nearly perfect. Nearly. The eyes were slightly too far apart, the cheekbones too sharp, and the mouth stretched a bit too wide, as if sculpted by hands that didn't understand limits. Emma stumbled backward, pulling the kids with her. Mark stared at the creature wearing his face, breath shallow. "Stay behind me," he whispered, though his voice shook. The double cocked its head, an uncanny bird-like motion. Then it mimicked him, repeating softly, "Stay behind me." But the tone was wrong, flat, hollow, like a recording played through ice. Delman raised the fireplace poker. "That's not him! That's not—" The creature moved. Not fast, not slow, but in a single jerking glide that brought it closer to Delman without any steps at all, like a frame cut out of time. Delman swung. The poker passed straight through the double's torso, scattering snowflakes across the floor. The creature's body lost shape for a split moment, collapsing into a swirl of frost, then reformed again. It smiled wider now, almost proud. Mark grabbed a chair and shoved it between the creature and the family. "Why us? What do you want?" The double tilted its head again. Snow trickled from its mouth as it answered. "What do you want?" Echoing him, mocking him, learning him. Then the creature turned its head sharply toward the staircase. Something was descending, heavy, slow, confident. The real guest. The double froze, stepping aside, like a servant making room for its master. The house grew so cold the air crystallized in front of their faces. Emma whispered, "Don't let it take anyone. Please." The children clung to her, shaking. Then the thing on the stairs came into view. It wasn't wearing anyone's face. Not yet. Its head was smooth and featureless, like a blank sphere of packed snow. Its body tall and thin, built from frost that shifted with every step. Long arms dragged against the railing, leaving trails of ice that cracked and spread across the wood. Behind it, the walls themselves froze in branching patterns. The guest stopped at the bottom step, and there, right on its blank face, indentations began forming, slowly, deliberately, pressing outward from beneath the surface, features shaping, a nose, cheekbones, a mouth, a face stolen from someone inside the house. Mark felt Emma grip his arm, her breath hitched. The forming face wasn't his, and not hers, not even Delman's. It was shaping into one of the children, their daughter's small features emerging through the frost. Emma screamed, "No!"
But the guest only took one more step forward, lowering its head like a creature about to claim something it had already marked as its own. The double beside it smiled wider. Snow swirled around them, and the storm outside roared like something finally being let in.
The guest took another step. Its forming face had almost finished copying the girl's. Small nose, soft jawline, familiar curve of her mouth. Only the eyes were still hollow, two shallow pits of moving frost. The double wearing Mark's face stood at its side like a reflection waiting for a mirror. Emma clutched her daughter so hard the child whimpered. "Take me instead," she whispered. "If you have to replace someone, take me." The guest paused. The air stilled. Even the storm outside seemed to quiet, as if listening. The hollow eye sockets turned toward Emma. For a heartbeat, the rough frost on its surface shifted, like it was considering the offer. Then the head tilted slightly, and the forming child face smoothed away. New indentations began to push out from the blank snow instead. Cheekbones sharper, a narrower mouth, lines at the corners of the eyes. Emma's face. She shook her head, stepping backwards. No, I didn't." Delman hissed, "Don't bargain with it. It doesn't trade. It learns." The guest began to move again, one long gliding step that brought it almost within reach. The double Mark took a step too, perfectly synced, closing in from the opposite side. Something in Mark snapped. He grabbed the nearest thing, a heavy floor lamp, and swung it as hard as he could at his own smiling copy. The lamp tore straight through it. The double shattered into a burst of snow and ice, scattering across the carpet. For a moment, there was nothing where it had stood. Then, every flake on the floor shivered. The snow recoiled toward the guest, like metal filings to a magnet, streaming across the wood and soaking into its body. The creature grew clearer, sharper, more defined. "Every piece you break, you're just giving it back to itself," Delman said hoarsely. The guest reached out. Its two long fingers brushed the girl's shoulder. Instantly, frost bloomed across her sleeve, racing up toward her neck. She gasped, eyes going glassy, breath turning to white smoke. Emma screamed and threw herself between them. The frost jumped to her instead, spreading across her chest, her arms, locking her in place like she was being cast in ice. Mark did the only thing that came to mind. He ran for the front door. Delman shouted, "Are you insane?" Mark didn't answer. He wrenched the door open. The blizzard slammed into the house in a roaring white wall. Snow swirled through the entryway, lights flickering wildly as wind tore through the hallway. The guest jerked, its featureless head snapping toward the open storm. For the first time, it looked uncertain. This was not a careful crack it had made in the world. This was a door flung wide. "Come on then, you want a house? Take the whole thing!" The storm rushed in harder, swallowing its own creation. The guest's body began to blur at the edges, flakes ripping off its limbs and dissolving into the wilder snow. Its forming Emma face warped, eyes sliding out of place, mouth twisting. The walls groaned, the house shuddered. For a moment, everything, frost, breath, fear, was just white. Then, silence. No wind, no footsteps, no whisper. Only the faint hum of the heater sputtering back to life. The frost retreated from the walls in thin, cracking lines. Emma collapsed to her knees, the ice on her skin flaking away into harmless crystals. The children sobbed into her arms.
Delman sank against the wall, staring at the open doorway. Outside, the storm was still raging, but normal now. Just weather. Just snow. They stayed awake until morning, too afraid to sleep. At dawn, the sky was clear. The world outside lay smooth and quiet, untouched, except for the front yard. 4 snowmen stood there now, perfectly shaped, perfectly still. One with Mark's face, one with Emma's, one with their sons, one with their daughters. All of them turned toward the house, their features carved with unnatural precision, their eyes just a little too deep. There were no footprints in the yard. Inside, the Carters moved through their kitchen, their living room, their hallway, shaking, exhausted, but alive. Mark didn't look outside again. Neither did Emma. They didn't see the way the security camera, still recording, showed something the morning light did not. On the footage, the house was empty. No people, no movement. Only the 4 snowmen on the lawn. And in one corrupted frame, all 4 of them slowly turning their heads toward the camera. The recording glitched once, twice. By the 3rd glitch, the snowmen were a little closer. And inside the house, the front door quietly unlocked itself.